this month, as we continue our rhythms, I want to take you to a passage that's pretty intense, but I think as we sit with it, we'll realize that it's fundamental to our experience of God's love. It's found in the book of James. We're going to start off in chapter 4, verse 4. It says, "You adulterous people, don't you know that friendship with the world is hatred towards God?" And I told you that it's pretty intense as it gets started, but you need to understand that God looks at our relationship, the relationship that He has made possible, the relationship that Jesus made possible as He gave His life for us. He looks at it like a marriage, that type of intimacy. And here's one of the most amazing things. He promises to be faithful to us in that way. And He calls us to be faithful to Him in that way. And as He continues, He talks about what so often we cheat on Him with. It says, anyone who chooses to be a friend of the world becomes an enemy of God. Now, He's not talking about people here. He's talking about the things of the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life, the things that I can possess, the pleasures I can experience, the positions I can achieve and hold. He's saying when you begin to chase after those instead of chasing after Him, you're unfaithful. He says, or do you think that Scripture says without reason that the Spirit He caused to live in us envies intensely? See this word envies? He says no, God longs for, He longs for us to be faithful to Him the way that He is faithful to us. And it's amazing the way that God portrays this, because He's calling us to this. He speaks to the idea that it actually impacts the way that He feels. This word envies is a word of feeling. It impacts the way that He feels. And the crazy thing is that not only does God want this, God deserves this. God deserves this. And in this passage, He's talking about how we so often, rather than being faithful to Him, we pursue these other things. It says, but He gives us more grace, unbelievably. That is why Scripture says God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble. He says, but when we humble ourselves, when we acknowledge the reality that we haven't been faithful, He gives us grace, and it says that He lifts us up. As it continues, it says, submit yourselves then to God. And this is really what I want for us to focus in on. This idea of submission, that I'm going to submit to Him. It's not just that I'm going to love Him. It's not just that I'm going to follow Him. I'm going to submit to Him. In other words, I give up my rights. I give up my right to be able to determine my future. I give up my right to determine the next step. I give up my right of what it is I'm going to pursue. I pursue nothing but You. Submit yourselves then to God. Resist the devil and he will flee from you. He's talking about temptation. Resist that when you're tempted towards those other things, to pursue those other things. Come near to God and He will come near to you. That intimacy, that relationship. Wash your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Grieve, mourn, and wail. Change your laughter to mourning and your joy to gloom. Humble yourselves before the Lord and He will lift you up. And He's talking about where you found pleasure and joy and those other things that you've been pursuing. He says it's time to clean house a little bit. And as we move through this month, I want for us to sit with this and for us to move into every day and ask, okay, where am I not submitting? Where am I pursuing those other things? Or maybe where are those other things dominating my thoughts? Where am I being tempted that I need to resist in that? So that, and here's ultimately the goal, so that I can be faithful to Him. And here's the thing. I know many of us, we look at it and we say, I don't want to submit. I don't like to submit. And make no mistake about it. When you submit to someone who doesn't love you, it can be incredibly painful. But submission to one who loves you, submission to one who cares for you, submission to one who's constantly fighting for you, and one who's preparing the future before you, that's not frightening at all. That's phenomenally encouraging, restful. And it's my prayer that as we move through this month, that we'll experience that we'll experience the rest and the peace that comes when we submit to Him, when we humble ourselves, when we submit to Him, when we push aside those things that tempt us to be unfaithful, and we draw close to the one who loves us most.